Hello guys, I'm really sorry about last video sounding like I was not enthused well, about making that video. I was just so stressful because, I'm seriously stressed about school lately because apparently I'm gonna be soon gonna be doing, you know, um homeschool. Like I'm gonna be doing all of that. Specifically, going on to Zoom calls and things like that. I'm seriously stressed out, and I also have to do my modules and things like that. That's why I've been not sounding enthused for the past last videos. So yeah, I'm really sorry about my attitude last time, and yeah. So let's go to the actual video then. Hello guys, I am back from another video, and today we're talking about the deku was Typhon. So, in the last video, Deku, well, after finding Japan and also being being a worker for a few, should I say hours? Yeah, a few hours. After Izuku does a little bit of work for a few hours, Izuku gets paid. As Izuku was brought to a bar where Izuku starts drinking some beer, which was weird for him because, Izuku never tried beer. Most of the time, back in Greece, they would mostly drink wine or something of that nature. So after Izuku goes home, or should I say, tries to find a home, Izuku realizes that he's able to use the check that he gotten from his quote unquote boss so he can exchange it for money. So Izuku goes to a bank as they were getting robbed by two different quirk users. One of them almost tried to kill Izuku, but Izuku just kicked her right in the stomach as Izuku runs away, and also meeting Miss Aizawa. Yes, I said Miss, and yeah, Aizawa's a girl in this one. So, after doing that, Izuku goes into a back alley and sees a dumpster, and when Izuku looks inside of it, Izuku sees Ochako, which, in this universe, she's an orphan. Yeah, after Izuku shows off his, horn, which he gotten as a reminder as, being Typhon, she said that, Izuku probably has a quirk. Or, Izuku has a quirk, basically. As Izuku shows her his quirk, which Izuku just calls shapeshifting, quote unquote, because Izuku just calls his magic or powers as a quirk, quote unquote. That's a lot of quotes. Anyway, so after a bit of talking and eating expired chips and things like that, they were discovered by the robbers. The robbers almost killed Izuku, but thankfully Aizawa came in and basically defeated them. But during the fight, Izuku's face was revealed, showing his horn as Aizawa and the two robbers said this. Wait, a boy has a quirk? As Izuku's about to slice them instantly with, the claws that he made from his body, but Izuku was knocked out by Aizawa and brought to her house. So, after that, Aizawa goes to sleep while Izuku and Ochako were knocked out and sleep on a couch or something, I don't know. So, yeah, that's basically what happened last video, so let's talk about what happens next. So, Izuku wakes up in a daze as Izuku says this. Where am I? Wait, what is this? What in the... As Izuku looks and sees a TV. As Izuku says, a weird looking mirror to be sure, but... As Izuku looks closer and says this. Why is it all dark? I can't really see my own reflection that well. As Izuku looks and sees another room, and that room was the dining room, or the kitchen, or whatever you want to call it. As Izuku sees Aizawa cooking, as Izuku says this, wait, you're the girl that knocked me out. What are you... Where am I? As she says this, hey, settle down. Besides, it's breakfast time. The name's Aizawa. So, kid, what's with that horn over there? As Izuku realizes that he's not wearing his hood. As Izuku says this, I just Izuku was just like dodging the question as Aizawa says this. It seems that you have a quirk or something. When I last saw you, which I knocked you out before you were about to kill all of those or at least those robbers that were about to kill you, you summoned out these weird looking claws. So you're the first boy with a quirk. Hmm. I thought you would be more let's just say here, I guess. As Izuku says this. Please do mad. As Izuku's tummy stops like I meant Izuku's tummy starts rumbling as Izuku says this. Ugh, I'm a bit hungry. As Aizawa says this. Here. As Izuku was given waffles. As Izuku says this. What is? As Aizawa says this. Do you even know waffles are? As Izuku says this. Um, waffles? As she says this. Here. So, she gives Izuku a piece of that waffle as Izuku tries it. Izuku says this. Not bad. As for Ochako, she wakes up and says this. Where am I? Izuku, where are... As she realizes that she's in a house. As Izuku says this. Hey Ochako, do you want to have a bite? As she says this. The, wow, where are we? And wait, you're the girl that... As she says this. Yeah, the name's Aizawa, or otherwise known as Eraserhead. I'm a hero. As she says this. Wait, you're a hero and you... Wait a minute. Wait, you're the one that saved us. Like you're the one that basically just wrapped all of those villains up. And wait, how are you not afraid of the Izuku? I mean, he's the first boy with a quirk. I mean, as Izuku says this. Hey, stop pushing my buttons. As she says this. Oh, yeah, sorry, Izuku. As Aizawa says this. So, how old are you, Mr. Izuku and Ochako, I believe that's your name? As Ochako says this. Oh, she kind of laughs as she says this. I'm 14. As, wait for a second. As Aizawa says this. How about you? As Izuku says this. I'm 14 as well. As she says this. Interesting. So, let me ask you something. Do you have any parents or any sort of guardian or anything? As Izuku says this, I'm an orphan. Yeah, I'm an orphan. As Ochako says this, me too. My parents abandoned me because of my quirk. As she says this, really? Then what is your quirk? As Ochako shows her quirk, which is a anti-gravity quirk. As she says this, not bad, but maybe you can train a lot so you can make your quirk a little bit more useful. As she says this, thank you, Miss Aizawa. As she says this, just Aizawa or whatever. How about you? What's your quirk? It seems that you have like a type of quirk that allows you to shapeshift or something. As Izuku says this, yeah, that is my quirk, shapeshifting. Izuku lies because, it's not really a quirk, it's more like, well, he's the god of all monsters, so he's able to transform his body parts into, well, monstrous appendages. As Izuku creates a tail, at the end of it is basically a dragon. As Izuku says this, here, this is one of my abilities. I'm able to shapeshift my body into anything I want. Like, for example, changing my whole body into like a different person, or just changing my body parts. Like, my arm into like a dragon's head or something. As Aizawa says this. Hmm, interesting. So, are you like is there any other abilities do you have? As Izuku says this. Well, I have the ability to basically give my body parts or specifically my monster parts the ability to well create electricity, lightning, ice or something like that. As Aizawa says this. Strong. So, how about your parents? Why did they abandon you, Miss Ochako? As she says this, just like I asked, I said that they abandoned me because I was well weak, because my quirk was not good enough. As Aizawa looks over to Izuku as she says this. So how about you? Why are you an orphan? As Izuku says this, I Izuku thinks in his mind as Izuku thought of this. I used to be a slave from Greece. Yeah, I used to be a slave from Greece. As she says this. A slave? What do you mean by slave? As Izuku says this. Yeah, I was enslaved, including my entire family. They were killed, and I had to be I had to escape that place. It was horrifying, I guess. Izuku lied as he was, well, breathing, if you get that reference. So, after a bit, Izuku, after telling his, well, quote unquote backstory, Aizawa says this. So, you are Ochako, right? A girl who was abandoned because of your quirk. And you, Izuku, do you have a last name? As Izuku says this. No, I don't really have a last name. As she says this. Okay, so, Izuku, whatever the frick you want to call yourself, you were a boy that was enslaved by what again? What exactly? As Izuku says this, by a tyrannical family, yeah. As she says this, right, a tyrannical family that took over your well part of your region and enslaved your family and killed mostly all of them except for you, which you escaped from Greece, right? As Izuku says this, yeah. As Ochako said this, whoa, I didn't know that your backstory was that dark. I mean, you would probably become a villain if I didn't met you or yeah. As Izuku says this, a villain. Why would I ever be a villain? As Ochako says this, I mean, your quirk is quite villainous, I guess. You're able to turn your body into different types of monsters, quote unquote, you call yourself. Like, giving yourself the arms of, um, like, like, whatever the heck you use or whatever. As Izuku says this, well, yeah, I mostly take my inspiration from uh Yuzuka just starts looking around and says and sees like a book about well wait for a second. Um Izuku sees a book about dragons. As Izuku looks over and says this, I take my inspiration for my quirk is and my shapeshifting from dragons. Yeah, from dragons. As Ochako says this, dragons? That actually sounds cool. As for Aizawa, she says this. Dragons. Hmm, that seems believable. I mean, dragons are okay. As Izuku says this. Yeah. Izuku just gulps. As Izuku says in his mind, oh, thank God, I can't believe they believed it. Izuku just basically just sighs in relief. As Izuku says this. Oh, and by the way, where are we exactly? As Aizawa says this, while you're in my crappy apartment. For being a hero, I don't really have any good, well, place, like any place to be good to sleep or anything like that, because my parents abandoned me because of my quirk as well. As Izuku says this, really, as Oko says this, why is your quirks? Why is your quirk like that dangerous? Is it like something that dangerous or something? As Eraserhead says this, yeah, it's pretty dangerous, but I can control it pretty well. It's called erase. As Izuku says this, let me guess, you're able to erase like quirks or something? As wait friend. As Aizawa says this. Correct. How did you know? As Izuku says this. Well, after seeing you in battle, I saw that your eyes turned a bit red, and the villains or the robbers can't use their quirks when those eyes are red, so that is what I thought your quirk was. As she says this. Correct. My quirk is an erasure quirk. And every time when I use this quirk, it strains my eyes, and I would always have to like stay awake for long periods of time. But to this quirk, well, this quirk allows me to just erase a person's quirk if I just look at them or just look in their direction or whatever. So, after telling them that, Izuku says this. Anyway, is there any way to like hide my horn or anything? I mean, there is that hoodie, but wait, where is that? As she says this. Oh yeah, your hoodie. It's currently in the washer. It's being cleaned. As Izuku says this. Oh thank God. Izuku just sighs and goes onto the couch. As Izuku says this. The modern era is pretty weird. Izuku just says it in his mind and wait for a second. After after Izuku says that into his mind, Izuku hears the door open. Specifically, the entrance. As Izuku starts scrambling away to try and find something that will hide his horns. Or horn, because Izuku only has one. So, Izuku finds the blanket that he was, well, using when he was asleep, when he got knocked out, yeah. Izuku gets the blanket and starts hiding under it, like, hiding like, what do you call it, like, the Grim Reaper. He looks like the Grim Reaper, but more cuter, I guess. So, after Izuku does that, Aizawa says this. Alright, I wonder who it is. As she sees that it is a girl. This girl has similar black hair to Aizawa, but except it's more kept and more, well, not as uncomfortable or itchy, but instead it's the opposite. It's smooth and comfortable. As she says this. So Aizawa, what do you... As she sees both Izuku and Ochako. As Aizawa says this. What is it? As... Wait for a second. As the girl says this. Wait, I didn't know that you have children. Wait, do you have a husband? I actually want to ask you about that. Do, as Aizawa says this. No, I am not in love with anybody. And besides, I just saved them from a big disaster last time. As she says this. So, who are they? Aizawa. As Aizawa says this. So, this is Izuku over here on the couch. The one that's basically looks like he's afraid. And that's Ochako, the one that's over there with the brown hair. I just found him during one of my missions. As the girl says this. Aw, so you're actually a big softie. As she says this. I am not. I just saved him just because. I am a hero, so... As Izuku says this. Who are you exactly? As she says this. Aw, thank you. Your name's Izuku, right? So, call me Midnight, wait for a second. The Sleepwalker hero. As Izuku says it. Izuku says this. Sleepwalker hero? As she says this. Yeah, my quirk allows me to, well, if anybody smells my odor, or just my body in general, they basically fall asleep. As Izuku says this, when a person smells you, they will fall to sleep. Am I hearing that right? As Ochako says this. Yeah, I definitely heard that. As, wait for a second. As Midnight says this. Why do you think that is weird? I mean, there's already weirder quirks, at least. As Izuku says this. Well, I never heard of a quirk like that before, and who would ever smell you? I mean, that's weird in itself, but who would ever do that? As she says this. Uh, um, I guess if they're a boy, anyway, Aizawa, I wanted to ask you something. As she says this. What is it, Midnight? As Midnight says this. Well, apparently some of the heroes said that we're gonna be, well, preparing for school very soon. As she says this. Oh yeah. New students. It's gonna be annoying. As Izuku says this. Wait, students? As Aizawa says this. Yeah, we're actually gonna be going to school very soon because we are teachers. As Izuku says this. Teachers? From where? As one of them being Midnight said this. Well, we're gonna be teachers of UA High School. As Izuku says this. UA High School. Never heard of it. As one of them being Ochako says this. Wait, you don't know this? Are you seriously under a rock, or at least like a serious rock or something? As Izuku says this. I am not, and second of all, I just wanted to ask. As Midnight says this. UA High School is actually for, well, heroes in training. Unfortunately, for you, you're not gonna become a hero because, well, you're a boy. As Ochako said this. Oh really? As she starts forcing Izuku to take off the blanket. As Izuku says this. Hey, stop it! As Ochako says this. Come on, just show it already. As Aizawa says this. Ochako, no. As wait for a second. As Midnight says this. What are you doing? As Izuku's full body is in display. As Midnight sees Izuku's horn. As she says this. What in the... Wait, you're the first boy that's able to use a quirk? How's that... Uh, uh, she's like astonished, like seriously astonished. As she says this. Aizawa, why didn't you just tell me first? As she says this. Well, I don't really care, and besides, what if we get in trouble for this? Like, seriously, this is the first boy that's able to use a quirk, and as Izuku says this, alright, everybody just calm down and just stop. As Midnight says this, anyway, so, you're the first boy that's able to use a quirk. So what is your quirk? Like, just horn or something? As Izuku says this, horn, no, I'm able to basically shapeshift. As she says this, shapeshift? So, are you able to just shapeshift into different people, or as Izuku says this, yes, but also no. I'm able to shapeshift into anybody, but I prefer to do this. As Izuku transforms his arms into basically claws, like just gigantic claws. As Izuku says this. So what do you think? As she says this. What the... So, how are you... As Izuku says this. My quirk allows me to basically transform my arms and other body parts into different... Well, what do you call them? Monsters, quote unquote. As she says this. What do you mean by monsters? The quote parts. As Izuku says this. Well, I mostly take my inspiration from dragons. Yeah, and most of the dragons I see are from... as Izuku starts looking around and sees a video game which Izuku already knows because, well, Ochako just told him about, like, earlier last time, like, during their whole conversation, like, eating those expired chips. Izuku says that, yeah, I mostly take my inspiration from video games, like, um, um, uh, uh, as she says this, from what? As Izuku says this, I just mostly take the stereotypical dragons and just infuse them with my body. As Midnight says this, huh? Really? Oh, and by the way, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Aizawa. As Aizawa says this, what is it, Midnight? As Midnight says this, I heard that you're still single, right? As she says this, yeah, right, but what is it? As she says this, well, I heard that there's a boy that's actually pretty fond with you. As she says this, I said stop it. As they both laugh, not really both, more like just her laughs. As Izuku says this, uh, anyway, I should stop. I just feel as hell. As Midnight says this, what do you mean by that, Izuku? As Izuku says this, well, I'm just a bit tired. Uh, Izuku kind of feels tired and feels a bit sleepy. As Ochako said this, why are you sleepy? We just woke up. As Izuku says this, no, it just feels comfortable. This. Uh, as Izuku was about to fall asleep, but Midnight just, well, just tells him to still, wait for a second. To still be awake, as Izuku says this. Ugh, fine. Anyway, what do you want to talk to me about, or just Aizawa? As Aizawa says this, yeah, you said about our just jobs or something, like our teaching job. As she says this, oh yeah, apparently Nezu said that there's going to be some brand new changes, especially with the zero pointers. As she says this, zero pointers. What do you mean by that? As she whispers in her ear, and unfortunately Izuku doesn't hear it, and I'm just gonna tell you guys. So, she basically explains that the zero pointers are now going to be made out of or comprised of ambrosia, which they're just gonna call in this universe, or in their minds, they just prefer to call Element X. As they say this, specifically Aizawa. So, it's going to be made of Element X. As Izuku says this, Element X. As one of them, wait for a sec. As Midnight says this, oh, don't worry. Um, by the way, Aizawa, um, where did you actually get them? Like, I know that you got them from, well, that, well, fight with those robbers, but where did both of you actually come from? Izuku explains that he was from Greece from his fake backstory, and for, well, Ochako, she basically explains what happened, like, in her story. That's like the whole, like, being abandoned thing. As, wait for a second again, I just got, as Midnight says this, oh, that's horrible. I can't believe you, a young boy that's able to use a quirk, is, well, your parents were killed during that thing. Like, you being enslaved. As Izuku says this, oh, yeah, just, uh, don't worry, I'm okay with it. As she looks at, well, her, specifically Ochako, as she says this, and I feel absolutely sad for you, Miss Ochako. Don't worry, you're just going to be safe with me. As she says this, please get away from me. So, after a while of talking with Midnight and Miss Aizawa, they started going home. Specifically just her because, well, Aizawa's talking to her in his or her home because, well, she's a girl in this one. So, after that, it's basically like the end of the day. Unfortunately for or fortunately for her, she doesn't have work today because, well, it's a Saturday. at least. So, she says this. Anyway, who wants pizza? As Izuku says this, pizza. Izuku remembers back in the day when the Romans arrived at Greece, or at least fell apart from Greece. Izuku back then basically just ransacked the whole parts of Greece and Rome by using his monsters or children as he prefers to call them, as they basically ravaged the entire a part of the Greek Isles and Rome, and also discovered pizza, even though it was not called pizza back in the day, but it was still pizza nonetheless. So, after seeing the modern day pizza, Izuku thought it was okay-ish. Izuku tasted it for the first time, as the first modern pizza that he ever ate is okay, at least. So, after they're finished eating, they started going to sleep, including Izuku. As they fall asleep, and it's going to be the next day, which, well, is not going to be next episode because there's going to be a brand new series coming after that. So, yeah. So, I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe so you can engage with me and also um bring me to that subscriber goal. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye bye.